Yo, what's happening, man?
Yo, man, I'm just ranching, man. You know.
Yo, they trying to come down on the ATO when we speak. They say we on the negative tip. What's up?
Now I'ma kick away our style that's smooth and unusual. It's from above the law, so see it's crucial. High beats are kicking and ripping yo with a funky touch. It's done the ruthless way, so see it's too much. D-O-P-E, please don't misdefine it. That's the way that I live, and that's the style of my rhyme. That's on time, just like your watch keeps sticking.
KMG.
On my side, so that my knowledge keeps sticking. Now what's really known as a radio cut? When you can't say
Shit.
and you can't say
Fuck.
I really think you wanna hear it, but the radio station, you see, they still gonna fear it. Yo, I thought this country was based upon freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of your own religion to make your own decision. That's baloney. Cause if I gotta play by your rules, I'm being phony. Yo, I got to cater to this person and that person. I got the rhyme for the white or the black person. Why can't it all be equal? Music is a universal language for all people. I better get off the rebellious tip before somebody out there say I'm starting to slip. I ain't tripping, I'm steadily flowing and throwing, giving you a dope style, keeping me on top of the pile. Cause ATL will soon take over the nation. And if you don't wanna hear us, we'll change the station. But we'll sneak in your mind, sink in your mind, creep from behind, so fast that you won't have time to deny a brother that's from the streets, trying to teach, hoping to reach. Yo, 187's not one that's known to preach, but I wish for each to have freedom of speech.
Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press.
They'll milk you to make it understood. They make it go so that it tastes real good to you. So see you fall right in it. Your minds are small. They feed you like infants, like children. They bring you along. They say we're wrong for making a rap song, but ATL hit you straight up jam after jam. Long as we say what we won't make our snaps, we don't give a damn. Those that wanna sell out need to get the fuck out the business, cause they ain't doing nothing but bluffing. Me, I get wild every rhyme I release, whether I talk about violence or talk about peace. Cause violence is something that happens in society when people are living low and don't know where they can go. But peace, I think we all want peace, but it's too much to face and it's too far to reach. Whether I say my rhyme fast, slow, sloppy, or neat, see, I wish when I do it to have freedom of speech.
Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press.
Now if they ban me, I don't give a fuck. Chalk it up an experience.
Yeah, bad luck.
Because I'm ballin' with Laylaw's clout. And if he say that it stays, the shit comes out. Cause in the early days when rap first began, some fool jumped up and said the tune would end. But nowadays, I hear song after song, and it proved to me that the fool was wrong. So yo, cut the bullshit all set aside. It's time for the people to realize about the things that happen in the ghetto, which those try to hide when they know we just strive to survive.
The homie said he have a job if you give him a break.
But when he gets
He
it,
goes by the other man's ways.
now see, that's just one more thing I have to talk about. About how they say rap music is turning the kids out. You never give your child credit for what he can do, plus the way that the raised are really up to you. Rap music, a form of literature, words and verbs and adjectives painted up like a picture. Yo, it's gonna hit you, yo, it's gonna get you. And when I'm all finished up, it's gonna fit you.
Hitting the nation.
Station to station.
Heavy rotation.
So strong that it's keeping the pace, and we will speak out on any situation. But when we do it, yo, we gotta have freedom of speech.
Yeah. See, that's how we had to do that. Yo, I gotta give it up to all my homeboys that got freedom of speech. Yo, Code 187, Ice Cube, MC Ren, The Deli Dr. Dre, Easy, the GOMACK, Told Chaos House and Things, Ruthless in the motherfucking house. Yo, to my homie DOC, and Laylaw with the clout. And we out, 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 and we out,
Welcome back to the Professor Penn podcast. David Penn here, your host. October 17th, Thursday evening, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, episode number 153, free speech. We're going to talk about free speech tonight, which is intimately related to free will. There's a lot going on, and let's do a little housekeeping first. I am coming to the conclusion, not out of ego and not out of self-interest, but out of care for my relationship to the search for truth, that Free People Radio is becoming a very important node in the effort to preserve humanity. And we're going to talk about that this evening. And there are thousands of people watching this podcast. Our YouTube audience is growing slowly because we're being suppressed on YouTube because of the content herein. So if you're watching me on YouTube, please bring your friends, your family, your coworkers, your neighbors to the podcast, because I know the loyal listeners and viewers, the participants in a community that we're making together, value what we're doing here. And, this is a political action opportunity for you to bring people here because it's a center of what's going on. My worker here at Free People, Royce White, is running for Senate. He's really becoming an unparalleled voice in American politics. And the more they call him this, that, thus, and so, the more we know he's getting under their skin. A little bit like Donald Trump. And guess what? Who's going to be the next man up? That's something we have to think about, because after the election, Donald Trump is a lame duck one way or t'other. So we're already thinking and planning over that next hill here at Free People Radio. And why do I say YouTube is important? Well, because the leftists are here. The uninvolved are here. The people that don't vote are here. The people that are aligned against what we're working on here are on YouTube. So if you're watching this and you're watching it on Royce's X or some other social media platform, please, let's gather here and create a storm, a tsunami of American citizens gathering on YouTube. Let's make this so interesting to YouTube that they have to let it grow, because they're in it for the money and we're in it for the love. Okay, they can do their thing. We're going to do our thing. I'm going to be starting, and I want to share this with you because I'm very happy to announce it. You've watched Maureen Bannon and I do some podcasts together. We've done 3, and we have come to enjoy working together so that we have decided to continue this in an ongoing nature. And until we stop, we're going to continue to have these podcasts at least a couple times a month where Maureen and I get together and do a joint podcast. And I'm very honored to do this with Maureen. I've gotten to know Maureen quite well. She's quite an interesting human being. And, she has a lot of gravitas. And it's an opportunity for me to share with her, learn from her, grow with her. And, of course, she's actually supporting the Professor Penn podcast when she's doing this, which is very complimentary to me personally, but more importantly to the audience we're building here at Free People Radio. And, the integration, the growth of this movement is really the cornerstone, has been the alternative conservative media that I'm a consumer of, you're a consumer of. Good morning, Tanner. Tanner's not going to talk too much today. He's not feeling well. Now, this is a trooper, right? This kid is sick today, and he was out of town at a wedding, and he came back not well, and he still came in this morning. Thank you, Tanner, for recording this, because, interdependency is not codependency. If we'd missed the night, hey, we would have lived through it. But Tanner cares enough about this podcast, not about me personally. It's not personal. He's into this movement, and he came sick to make sure we got up on air tonight. But, the Free People Radio business, because it is a business, but the effort to get out this word and to be integrated into the general conservative media. And when I say conservative media, I mean republicanism. I don't mean really Fox News. I mean the people that are really out in the cutting edge, that are trying to preserve faith in this country, the opportunity for faith, the opportunity for family, that are focused on my well-being, your well-being, human well-being, American citizen well-being. It exists because the listeners and viewers make decisions economically to support this media. This media is under tremendous pressure because of lawfare. Now, Free People Radio is not yet. And I am going to try, and I was, texting back and forth with Damien about this, and I mentioned his name on a couple of podcasts because he's so insightful, he's so on point, and he's pushing me. And we've had a kind of meeting of the minds. He understands, and I want everybody to understand. I see the pitfalls that other people have gotten into. Our opponents make a big deal about democracy and the Constitution. And I'm going to say right to them, because they're watching us, we're making a big deal about the Constitution. We agree in that process. And if we stay in that lane and we talk about our opinions when it's an opinion, and we're always talking about our street corner, not trying to say we know the truth, but that we're searching for truth and that we're prudent in how we speak with each other, I'm going to attempt to stay on air. Because as you know, some of our leadership has been put on ice. And, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not going to read all those legal documents. It's not my case. I got my own cases going on. So I don't know the ins and outs of it. But what I do know is that if people step up and they're creating communities that question the status quo, as we're going to talk about tonight, if they're exercising their right to free speech, well, what that means, we're going to look at what that means to people tonight, because we don't have to make it up. We got the clips, we've got the receipts, and we have to understand where we're at, what world we're living in now. And this is a prayer without me praying. I've been saying things since the very first podcast about the search for truth, about the philosophy of republicanism as separate from the Republican Party, because we don't have that sorted out. That republicanism is so bold and so brave as a philosophy that it actually allows contradictory philosophies to prevail within our polity if we let them prevail. The people that formed this country were so brave, so bold, that they opened up the possibility for competition because they knew that freedom required conflict, that if things were easy and soft, people would become complacent and give up their freedom to tyrants. So the system we have is very adversarial, very conflict-orientated, and we will see now if the American people still have the spine, still have the courage to protect the unalienable rights granted to them by the Creator. Now, I'm asking you, but I'm also sharing with you. We have an economic strategy here. It's tireget.com. Some people are selling advertising. Some people are selling vitamins. We're in the tire business here to fund the growth of Free People Radio. And why are we doing that? Well, that's because I've been in the tire business since 1979. I've got these leftist detractors that say I'm just a tire salesman. Okay, I'm just a tire salesman. But please let me sell you tires because it's a benefit for you. And I'm going to lay out the benefits. Number one, the price is right. I know what I'm in the business. You can't get a better deal. The price is right. Number two, the customer service. You might talk to me, which means you're not going to get sold hokum. You're going to I'm going to sell you what you need because I understand what questions to ask and I want to get you exactly what's right for you. Number three, we're going to, in most of the population of the country, not all. If you're watching me in Montana, I haven't solved Montana yet. But hey, why do you live in Montana? because you don't want to live in New York City, and God bless you. But in most of the population centers, we will mount and balance your tires 5 minutes from your house. This makes this the best price, the best customer service, and the most convenient way to get tires. And you got to buy tires from someone, and you'll be supporting Free People Radio. So I'm going to ask you, it's almost wintertime. Check your tires. If you need them, call in. Let us help you. Now back to the game, because you vote with your money. You got to go vote, right? You got to go vote. You've got to go vote. But you vote every day with the economic choices you make, and it's time to start recognizing what's really going on here. Put it all together. It's like a summary preamble, because I've been talking about the search for truth. I've been talking about the philosophy of republicanism. We've been talking about the post-World War II Democrat liberal order and juxtaposing that with republicanism. We got all the pieces of the puzzle, and if you're new, if this is your first time at the podcast, if you've come over from the radio show or somebody brought you in, it's a little bit of a review, but there's 152 previous episodes you can go look at on my YouTube catalog. And I've got people, Tanner, that call in pretty regular and say they've watched every episode. And if you've done that, I thank you, because that means you value the research that I'm putting into this and what I'm presenting. And I'm doing it because I'm a faithful person. This is my prayer. And it's not a prayer where we're going to pray. It's just my prayer, my heartfelt prayer. We're 19 days out from an election today. It does seem as if Donald Trump is gaining traction, and the left is going completely wild about this. I was watching Morning Joe driving and watching on my cell phone, and they're just crazy about this Vice President Harris interview with Bret Baier on Fox News. And she did kind of melt down. And she was melting down about democracy. Democracy. Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. And then Mika Brzezinski chimed in, we've got to start using the word fascism. Yes, I've been using it for quite a while. In fact, on the last episode, the whole thing was about fascism in America, which is as American as apple pie. It goes back to where? To the British business model of slavery, drugs, and piracy, which wound its way into our country on day one. But they're triggered. And what's triggering them? What's triggering them is whether they understand it or they do not. They could be thought leaders within a process, hiding what they know from us and manipulating us, or they could just be dummies taking the money on somebody's payroll. I don't know if they're evil or if they're stupid. It doesn't matter to me. The results are the same. And here's the result. This is an anti-human period in world history. There's a lot of humans, billions of them. The population is expanding. Since the 1960s, when Paul Ehrlich wrote The Population Bomb, population has been identified as a threat to the survival of the planet. In other words, humans are a threat to humanity. That when the traditional philosophy, the monotheistic philosophy that God gave man dominion over all things is allowed to continue, man's going to destroy everything. Really? I mean, are we really that stupid, we human beings? Well, somebody thinks so. And who's the somebody? Well, we actually know who they are, but naming their names is not important. That's not important. They're entitled to their philosophy the same as you and me, because we believe in our constitutional process. It's a constitutional process where we are in an adversarial relationship with people who seek to rule over us. That's the process that the founders gave us because it made us strong. Now, we've gone through a period of weakness after that World War II period. Okay, it's been a period of such peace and prosperity that the American people gave up their self-governance willingly. We're going to talk about that tonight because it's a freedom of speech issue. But when I say it's anti-human, as we go through the script tonight, we're going to talk about automation. We're going to talk about robots and AI. And what kind of world are we setting up here if everyone's job gets eliminated? Why would they want to eliminate my value as a human being? Who has convinced me or tried to convince me that every scientific invention is good? See, that's what we're really dealing with here. No, we've got this election. Go vote. Get your people out to vote. It's not too late to door knock, to phone call. We're in the home stretch. Get off the couch. There was a chat going on in my Senate district. You know, all the 17 people on my board, they chat. I woke up this morning to this chat. And I just chimed in, hey, we're going to be on the streets Sunday. If any of you people would like to quit doing entertainment and actually do politics, I'm going to be at the Viking Stadium, 9 a.m. Sunday morning with the street team in the cold, holding signs, giving people permission to think about being Republicans. Now, we can still have a good time doing that. We're still going to be together. We can still talk. We can talk about politics, but we're going to do it in action. Republicanism is an action philosophy. Sitting on the couch complaining, texting each other, writing emails to each other, that's not an action philosophy. That's called avoiding the issue. The issue is in the streets. Thank you, Susan. You were on target. But this anti-human philosophy, we are distracted by these elections and this politics. We're distracted by it. It's a distraction. It's just another distraction. Because as far as the people are concerned that are developing these technologies, we are going to buy them and adopt them, whether they're good for us or not, because we're brainwashed to believe that if science delivers a material benefit, it's good. It's a good benefit without assessing the costs. For example, I'm watching Elon Musk roll out these new robots. Have you seen that, Tanner? Well, they look great, don't they? Hey, guess what's going to happen when you got a personal assistant, also formerly known as a slave, to do all your work? You're going to become very dependent on that slave. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Why? You know, I got to thinking about this even down to the level of they have these home delivery services now for groceries. There are people that don't go to the grocery store anymore. They're staying home. They're getting atomized because they can go to an app and buy their groceries online and somebody shows up and drops it by the door. They don't even have to see the people. Man, we're humans. We're social organisms. I'm going to go to the store on Friday and buy my own butter and my own milk. I'm going to put it in a bag and carry it to my car. That keeps me well. You know, it's funny, when I go to the store with Mrs. Professor Penn, maybe we got 4, 5, 6 bags of groceries. She always says to me, let's use the cart. I never use the cart. I carry them out at my age. I walk with strength. I walk with vigor. I'm carrying that weight, and I'm doing it purposefully to stress my body so I stay strong. And it's a nothing burger. It's nothing. It's just a little thing. I walk upstairs instead of taking the elevator right in this building. Every day I walk up the stairs. I walk in every day. I see people getting in the elevator to go up 2 flights of stairs. I'm thinking, man, what are you doing? Walk up the stairs. It's good for you to walk up the stairs. It's a little thing, but it's going to keep your blood pressure good. It's going to keep your body healthier because we are dependent as organisms on challenge. That's the way we're made. I didn't make us. That's the way we're made. And we don't like it. We want everything to be convenient and easy because we're lazy. And guess what one of the 7 deadly sins are? Sloth. The 7 deadly sins, the things that if you do, it'll kill you. Sloth, laziness. You know, I used to think lust was the bad one. I'm realizing it's sloth. You know, we got to get our heads right about these technologies and how dangerous they are to our future. And here's what's so cool about Donald Trump. And if this goes to be a 2-hour podcast, I'm sorry. Because, you know, it's time to start getting serious about this. You know, I got people hate Donald Trump that are in the Republican Party, and they're continuously working me that he's a man-child. He's an ass, whatever. You know what I see? I see a guy that is, whether he understands it or not, willing to pull the linchpin out of the entire system. He's talking about changing the international system of trade, which ends globalization. And I read an article today that the Washington Post published yesterday about the costs of Donald Trump's proposed tariffs. Oh, it could cost as much as $7,000 per family if he does it. Oh, that's just so bad. You know, if we don't do this, we're all going to be slaves and we're going to get clipped because we won't have anything to do. This whole system of globalization, as we're going to see in a minute, is automated, AI infused, and it's meant to eliminate all the workers out of the system, this process of globalization. And it only works if it's globalized, if it's a world governance. Because if the United States of America, a Republican form of governance, if the citizens of this country say, hey, we're not doing this, the whole system falls apart because we're the largest market and we created this system here. And maybe it was created with good intent. I don't know. I wasn't in people's head. It's possible that the people that created this at the start were very anti-human. I don't know. But I can see really the signs of good intent in the beginning of globalization back in 46, back in 1913 even. There were some positives. But boy, this thing has been hijacked and it's heading towards a reality that is not good for my children, where they won't have jobs, where their human dignity is stripped from them, where they won't know truth from false, where they're going to be fed a narrative and that'll be only one narrative. And if they step out of line, they're going to have a big problem. And that's where we're headed. And we know it because that's what the left is saying about the nationalist movement, that we're fascists. We are not fascists. We are Republicans. What they're saying is republicanism is fascism. And from their street corner, that's what it is. Because what they believe, because they're globalists, workers of the world unite, global communism. We're all going to own nothing, but we're going to be happy. This kind of philosophy. This is what they're promoting. And they believe in it either because they're evil or because they're stupid. It does not matter, but it's not America. America is about protecting minority rights, not about a homogenous worldwide approach to democracy. That's why you hear Vice President Harris, Mika Brzezinski, and all the rest of these people talk about Donald Trump and the American nationalists being a threat to democracy, because to them, democracy is globalism. That's what it is. And of course, its linchpin is a woman's right to reproductive health care, because they need the women on the team to get the ball across the goal line for their victory. Well, women, I love you, but if you want your children to be slaves, vote for the globalists. Maybe you do. Maybe you think that's better. I know my mother certainly does. She would love it if I never learned how to fight, if I never owned my own business, if I'd worked at a university as she intended for me to do, if I spoke French fluently as she taught me. She would love it if I gave up my faith in God. She would love it if I did that because she believes in that philosophy. She believes one race is superior and another is inferior, but it's no longer about race. It's about education. If you're not educated, you are today's slave. If you can get to the top of the heap, get a PhD, you can run the show. Hey, competition, survival of the fittest. It has now transformed itself from a physical dimension to an intellectual dimension. So I'm a class traitor because I'm smart enough to have a PhD. I'm smart enough to teach at the university, and I reject you people. Excuse me. Sometimes I lose it. Let us go to the news that matters. Tanner, could you please play that clip I just popped up today because there's some breaking news? Thank you, Tanner. That's a B-2 bomber. It costs, nobody knows what it costs for sure. This is a very secret kind of a program. That's out there on the YouTube just to let you know you can sleep safe at night because your Air Force never does sleep, okay? Maybe that thing costs $1.2 billion a piece. I'm paying for that while my inner city Minneapolis decays to non-existence. And then I look at the leftists here putting up pictures of Lake Calhoun. They got a new name for it, and I'm too old to remember the name, and I'm not trying to be a racist. They changed the name to some kind of Indian name. What's the name, Tanner, of the new, what is Lake Calhoun called these days? Do you remember?
I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like 3 words put together though.
Well, you know what? I'm sorry to bug you because you're sick, but they changed the name. It was always Lake Calhoun because it's named after a racist, Calhoun, John, but anyhow.
Is this the same lake? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but.
Yeah, that's
right?
it. I don't know how to pronounce it.
I don't know how to pronounce that.
I don't know how to do it. Anyhow, the leftists are always putting up pictures of this beautiful lake and saying how beautiful Minneapolis is because, they can't go into North Minneapolis, which really needs investment from we the people. And then we're spending the billions of dollars on these B-2 bombers, which here's the breaking news. Something very noteworthy just happened just a few hours ago. It's an escalation of this line of conflict. U.S. stealth bombers, that B-2 bomber, bombed Yemen just a few hours ago. This is unprecedented. They bombed hardened facilities in Yemen, and it was really a warning shot to Iran. It's not really a warning shot. This is the strategy that's being employed right now. It's very evident because of the way the response has been carried out to Iran's recent 200 missile attack on Israel, that nobody really has an appetite for an all-out war with Iran because that's World War III, because the Russians are in there. They've put S-400 batteries in there, as we were talking about, and they have troops there, and they've got airplanes in the region, fighter jets in the region. I mean, there's like a limit here now. There's some limits being put on because, it's 3 weeks before the election, and how bad would it look to have a world war 3 weeks before an election? What happens the day after? Hey, who knows? But we the people, that'd be you and me, just bombed with our most expensive and high technology bomber, the B-2, a sovereign nation, Yemen, which we're at war with. Not Israel didn't bomb Yemen. You and I did. You and I just bombed the Yemenis. Okay, so the strategy is as follows. Today's strategy. Iran's armies in southern Lebanon, in Gaza, and in Yemen are going to be destroyed. The word's in from the top. These folks are going to get clipped out. It's going on. There's no guardrails. There's no talk of peace. There's nothing stopping the United States and Israel and other partners of the United Nations, other partners participating in this war. And it is a war. This is not, when you look at it on television or you see it on X, it trivializes the human suffering and the carnage and chaos that's going on here. It's beyond our understanding because we're today living in the safety of the United States of America. But this is a very serious escalation, and it signals to the axis of evil, that would be Iran and Russia and China, the Iron Triangle, that the United States is all in. We, you and me, your children are all in on this. But there are some guardrails. There has not yet been an attack on Iran. And as we talk about the news that matters, we're going to find out when Israel responds, it's going to be limited. A little Ukrainian news, just because it never hurts to revisit the Ukraine. Zelensky is really begging now to have the permission to use long-range missiles to strike deep inside Russia because, the Ukrainian front is collapsing and the Russians are going to win. And there's going to have to be a settlement or there's going to be the Ukraine back in Russia. And he's begging the United States and Britain to use these long-range missiles on attacks. And the British have come right out and said, no, you can't do that. You cannot do it. So, everybody's getting a little afraid right now. It could be because there's actual fear. Because, if there's actually a nuclear war, how do these leaders know they're going to survive it? These people, like for me, okay, let me just share. I know that Christians, and I've been very upfront about how I feel about Christianity and how Christ has been involved in my own life. Having been a Jewish person that actually had to deal with the appearance of Christ in my life. But as a person who's Jewish, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about the afterlife. People that were Jewish in my cohort did not think about heaven. We thought about our life right here. I had a beautiful grandmother, my grandmother Bess. She used to say, my dear honey, no one ever came back from the other world. Make your heaven or hell right here in this world. And she used to say, as you make your bed, so shall you lie in it. So that's how I was brought up, focused on the here and now. And I recognize that some people are living their life for an afterlife. That's not how I live my life. And I'm not saying anybody is wrong to think that way. I get to have my own unique search for truth. But if you're a globalist and you don't believe in God and you only believe in science and the material world, there's no afterlife for you. These people are seeking technological immortality. The only thing they have is their life, and they do not want to lose it because they're afraid. They don't have any spiritual life. They only have a material life. So they're afraid. So possibly, because we do not understand God's plan, possibly their fear of the unknown, of nothingness, because that's what they think they're going to get to, and they just can't deal with that, right? See, I could. I don't know what's going to happen after I die, but I know while I was here, I have loved God with all my heart and all my soul and all my might, and I'm trying to treat you the way I want you to treat me. And, that's good enough for me. If there's something afterwards for me, thank God. But I'm thanking God right now, this morning. I went to the bathroom with no problem. Thank you, God, Because if one of those orifices close up for even a couple of days, your ass is grass, right? We got to get down to the basics of thankfulness and give up human arrogance. That's how we get out of this trap. But these people are terrified, and that terror may prevent them from triggering this nuclear war. So they've told Zelensky, forget about it. And even though Hezbollah continues to bomb Israel every day with rockets, Israel's response is rather muted. Although, guess what? Our State Department has come out and told Israel, go get these people. This is right from our State Department spokesman, Matt Miller. Quote, now that Hezbollah is on its back foot and is getting battered, suddenly they've changed their tune and they want a ceasefire. We ultimately want a diplomatic solution, but we fully support Israel's efforts to degrade Hezbollah's capabilities. Wow, that's nice. Haven't heard that talk since World War II. But while the United States is saying destroy the armies in southern Lebanon and Gaza and in Yemen, and we're actually participating in that, the United States has offered Israel compensation. Compensation. That's using the U.S. dollar to achieve United States policy aims. And this goes back to what I was going to say about President Trump. I'll digress. President Trump, why they're saying he's a fascist, why they're saying that believing in the United States of America is fascism, is because when he gets elected, and he's starting to look like he could get elected, and then if he succeeds in getting inaugurated, and he's president, he's going to change the global trading system. He's basically going to wreck it. He's going to impose taxes, which raise the cost of everything. And what they're saying in the Washington Post is, oh my God, I'm talking right to you now. Well, you're going to pay $7,000 more a year. And what's going to be the benefit? The cost of wrecking the system, yes, it's going to cost me. It's going to cost you. And I buy a lot of imported goods. It could put me out of business. And what is the cost? The cost could be I lose my business. It could be you pay $7,000 more a year. What's the benefit? Freedom, independence, human dignity. That's the benefit. And that's exactly what they're trying to stop. Because if we keep going with this process of globalization, if there's one world government and one world trading system and everything's automated and everything's AI and everything's robotic, what are you going to do for a living? What is going to be your value? What is going to be the value of your children or your children's children if we continue to believe that every invention brought to us by the arrogant is a benefit to our lives and the lives of our next generation? And they want us to be stupid. But we're going to stay constitutional. I'm just sharing my opinion. I don't know what the truth is. I'm searching for truth. I'm being very constitutional. I'm following every rule. I don't even steal a meal for my business. Not even a meal. Not a mile. I follow constitutional law. But our government is offering Israel my and your dollars, us, we the people. That's our money. That's our money. Because we're taxed to develop it. We're taxed to pay it. And they're giving it to Israel not to attack the oil infrastructure, because if they attack the oil infrastructure, you're going to be paying $10 for a gallon of gas. And if that happened in 2 weeks, woo, you wouldn't like that, because we're all materialists. And then guess what? That'd be even more votes for Donald Trump. Support for Israel has cost at least $22.76 billion this year. That's our money. That's our money. Our globalized dollars. And of course, Iran had an earthquake, a 4.5 magnitude earthquake last week. And many people are saying it was a nuclear test. Was it? Wasn't it? I don't know. You don't know. But it's in the news, creating anxiety and opportunity. Of course, the CIA came out and said, no way is it a nuclear test. There's no evidence that Iran is seeking a nuclear weapon. That's according to our CIA director, William Burns. He's the head spy. I'm sure every word he says, I believe. He's the head spy. Remember what William Casey said, a former director of the CIA? We'll know our disinformation program is a success when everything the American people believe is a lie. Go look it up. Hey, I'm not making it up. It's right there on Google. How can you get mad at me? I'm just repeating what you're sharing. You didn't make it up, did you? If you did, don't blame me. I'm just repeating. I'm not trying to create disinformation.
Oh, these are the automated ones.
Our Stu Mundell over the Port of Los Angeles, seeing something unfold many folks probably didn't know about. The port is going automated. Artificial intelligence and digital technology are moving and powering commerce here.
These are drones.
Containers are lowered onto trailers, and within seconds those trucks drive off. They know where to turn, where to drive, and where to drop off their cargo. They even yield to each other when one crosses in front of the other, and there are no humans in sight.
Four-wheel steering. These are cool.
The old supply chain, so to speak, is no longer in place.
Professor Nick Vyas is the executive director with the Center for Global Supply Chain Management at USC. As futuristic as this may look, Professor Vyas says we're way behind other countries.
That's just a small subset of what the automation being adopted in the rest of the world.
Professor Vyas is referring to ports like this one, Rotterdam in the Netherlands, Europe's busiest port, and it's also one of the world's most technologically advanced. Rotterdam officials say they've created a platform that will allow autonomous shipping using sensors placed on quay walls, waterways, and even dolphins. As exciting as the technology is, the evolution of it also has the potential of being very painful.
But the bigger picture, which people don't understand, is the cost and effect.
Mark Mendoza is the president of ILWU Local 13. He represents more than 8,000 longshoremen who work at the LA and Long Beach ports. Mendoza says automation could mean the end of hundreds or even thousands of jobs.
If you go to fully automated, it goes down, you say the membership of 8,000, all these temporary casuals, we can go down to 800. These aren't $10 an hour jobs. These are jobs where it only takes one income to take care of your whole family.
Mendoza says he wants to work with the companies using automation at the port to make sure his workers get the tech jobs associated with running, maintaining, and fixing the automated systems. And Mendoza knows the automation is part of the present and the future.
What will happen to the jobs of today and what those jobs will look like in the future? And the answer is, really, we need to embrace this change that's coming.
Yeah, we need to embrace the change that's... No, we don't. I reject it. Nick the prick, PhD. We need to embrace the change that's going to put me and my children out of work forever so we become completely and utterly dependent on the state. Because that's good. That's progress, right? No, these longshoremen are... It's like the last stand of the Mohicans. The last of the Mohicans. We don't need automated ports. We don't need AI. We don't even need these friggin' cell phones. I grew up with them. I didn't get my first cell phone until in my late 40s, early 50s. We don't need them. We don't need your stinking technology. We don't need it. We don't need it, and I don't personally want it. Oh, really? You know, the linchpin of this technological takeover is the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar system, the U.S. dollar hegemony, globalization, and the world trade architecture. That is the linchpin of the whole thing. And Donald Trump is saying he's going to wreck that system. And that's why I'm a fascist. That's why I'm a misogynist. That's why I'm a racist. That's why I'm a Nazi. Because I just don't want to participate in this technological takeover. I must be a fascist. They're going to call me everything because I want to search for truth. We have these two philosophies, the post-World War II Democrat liberal order, which is the weed of human arrogance, and then we have republicanism, which are rights granted to us by a creator. We have free will. We will choose. We, the people, will choose our future. Go to the polls and choose the philosophy of human dignity. Don't get caught up in the hype. They make the thing hard to figure out, so we choose incorrectly, like a shell game. Remember the shell game, with the walnut shells? Where's the marble? What shell is the marble under? Where is it? Oh, I choose this one. Oh, you choose wrong. No, it's very simple. Two philosophies, science or the search for truth. That's it. And let's take a look at how deep they're getting into this, because they're getting triggered.
You're thinking about sitting out or even supporting somebody who has a history of denigrating you because you think that's a sign of strength, because that's what being a man is, putting women down? That's not acceptable.
This stuff is so blatant it almost speaks for itself. But in other words, if you're supporting Donald Trump, it's because you're a misogynist. Oh, I'm hearing that. I'm a misogynist. Because I don't agree with you does not make me a misogynist. If you're a woman and I don't agree with you, if we don't agree, and we do it in a respectful fashion, me not agreeing with you does not make me a misogynist. It just means I don't agree with you. Okay? Let's get that straight. Let's just run through some clips. These things actually speak for themselves. Please play number 3.
Have you noticed how sharply the polls have shifted in Trump's favor over the last couple weeks? With these claims that Trump is surging with Black and Latino voters and leading in every single swing state, according to secret internal polls, despite all the Hitler talk? Yes, this race will be far too close. Because unfortunately, we do have a fascist groundswell in parts of this country, mainly among white men, let's be clear, but in small pockets among Black and brown men too. This happens to be a global phenomenon as women become more economically independent and seek positions of power.
Okay. You know what? It's got nothing to do with what Joy is saying. It's got to do with, hey, we want to work. Don't clip us out of the world economy. It's a global phenomenon because people, either unconsciously or consciously, are figuring out the scam.
If anything, you need to say thank you to Obama. You need to tell Obama thank you for waking up Black people to what the Democrat Party has been about all of this time. Did you know, back in the day when slavery was here, they used to send out other Black slaves to retrieve their property? Did you know that? That's what they did. They would send out other Black slaves to retrieve their property. And that's exactly the same thing they did here with Obama. Obama is not for Black people. He's for controlling Black people. Eat on that.
That's a nice way of saying it, eat on that. I'm not even going to go there. But when he says eat on that, see, this is how you stay up on these social media platforms. You have to speak with some style. That was very stylish. And let's play number 5.
What you thought you was doing, Barack Obama? Boy, you done stepped out there. All you did was piss Black men off, bruh. All you did was piss Black men off. Why y'all think the American people why y'all think the Democrat Party own Black folk? The Democrat Party don't own Black folks, bruh. What you thought you was doing with that? We see the play. We see the play. Kamala Harris is losing. She's not gonna win. So you done stepped on out. yeah, you know, black people, if you're voting for Donald Trump and not Kamala Harris, this is unacceptable. Man, look, check this out. This is what I gotta say to you. 1, 2, Trump is coming for you. 3, 4, you won't win no more. 5, 6, the election was fixed. 7, 8, y'all made a mistake. 9, 10, Trump is coming again. 9, 10, Trump is coming again. Bam!
I like a little levity, a little singing, a little rhyming. You know, I don't understand everything, and I'm certainly not trying to act as if I do. But we're at an inflection point, and the way to preserve humanity is republicanism. The very essence of this thing, self-governance and the protection of minority rights, is what this country was all about. You know, you go back to the Bible. Let me just wax biblical. First, you know, there was the Word. I mean, come on. What we think is free will. What we say is free will. What we do is free will. And what republicanism seeks to do is to expand the limits of what we think, what we say, and what we do to the maximum so that we're free. The balance points is when my freedom, you know, I'm free to rob you, but, you know, that's a little bit far, don't you think? I'm free to kill you. That's a little bit far, don't you think? I mean, we've got some checkpoints, some balance points to our freedom of action. And that's why it's so important from the perspective of the founders that people are Christians, because the self-governance is about my relationship with the search for truth. Then we don't need a lot of government, do we? But if you can break people away from the search for truth, you got to govern them. And boy, we're way down that road. We're so far down that road. Hey, would you like to have one of those robots as a personal assistant, Tanner?
It sounds like a great time, but I think I'd get more annoyed with it.
I don't want to we can't make him talk. He ain't feeling good. We're going to let him recover. This kid needs a little bit of recovery. No, I was going to play 20 minutes of the China's foreign minister addressing the United Nations. We did Netanyahu. We did Lavrov. I want to give the Chinese a chance, but we're going to run out of time. So we're going to punt. We're going to be improv on the script today. And we're going to talk about free speech. It's very important we understand who these people are. Could you please play Under Authoritarians? It unfortunately is mark number 1. Could you please play that one?
And I think the dislike of and anguish over social media is just growing and growing and growing. And it's part of our problem, particularly in democracies, in terms of building consensus around any issue. It's really hard to govern today. You can't, there's no, the referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact have kind of, been eviscerated to a certain degree. And people go, and people self-select where they go for their news or for their information. And then you just get into a vicious cycle. So it's really, really hard, much harder to build consensus today than at any time in the 45, 50 years I've been involved in this. And there's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So what we need is to win the ground, win the right to govern by hopefully having, winning enough votes that you're free to be able to implement change. Now, obviously, there are some people in our country who are prepared to implement change in other ways. And
so
that's
you're
really
questioning
dangerous.
really if democracy can survive unregulated social media?
I think democracies are very challenged right now and have not proven they can move fast enough or big enough to deal with the challenges that we are facing. And to me, that is part of what this race, this election is all about. Will we break the fever in the United States?
There's so much there. I'm just going to ask you to go back and listen to it 3-4 times. First of all, democracies are not challenged. The hegemony of the globalists is being challenged. And boy, they'll go to any lengths to stay in power. Any lengths. Yes, I'm free to go to any news source right now. I don't have to go to the curated news. It's so hard to manufacture consent when people have brains and they are free to go. Can you believe that? That's just stunning. Poor Tanner, he's over here. He's going to wilt on me. Thank you, Tanner, for coming in today. You know, this is so emblematic of where we're at. And Kerry, you know, former presidential candidate, I was there when he popped up on the scene during the Vietnam War. Boy, he was an inspiration. This man served allegedly with distinction and came back, and he was an anti-war activist, which appealed to me. He's just a little bit older than me. And boy, look what he became. How did you go from being an anti-war free speech activist in the 60s who stood up to fight the power of the military-industrial complex and in one lifetime sell out and be on the team of the people you were fighting? You know how that happens? Money. This man is rich, in my opinion. I'm not sure how it happened. I'm not in his head. He may really believe it. He may really believe it, but when he stood up, he exercises his right of free speech to challenge the very narrative he's trying to, support right now. I don't understand it, John Kerry. I don't, and I'm not going to speak for you, but I remember you when you were a young man fighting the power, and now you are the power, and you're decrying the people that are standing up and challenging the narrative. And that's how you got your start. That's how you got your start. Kind of like being a very edgy musician or actor or artist. And then we look at you 20 years later and, hey, you're on the payroll. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I'm not saying I know. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand. Let's look at the next one. Secretary Hillary Clinton.
We should be, in my view, repealing something called Section 230, which gave platforms on the internet immunity because they were thought to be just pass-throughs, that they shouldn't be judged for the content that is posted. But we now know that that was an overly simple view, that if the platforms, whether it's Facebook or Twitter X or Instagram or TikTok, whatever they are, if they don't moderate and monitor the content, we lose total control. And it's not just the social and psychological effects, it's real harm.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Going to lose total control. Oh, we don't control the narrative. John Kerry said the same thing. It's so hard to manufacture consent because there's other ideas that have worked their way into the marketplace of ideas. To harken back to a Supreme Court decision, free speech is so important. And why are they running these two people out there on the front lines to talk about this? Well, they're both failed presidential candidates. They have some gravitas. It's hard to find evidence of what Vice President Harris believes about these issues, but here's a quote. Speaking at the annual NAACP Fight for Freedom Fund dinner in Detroit, Harris recently threatened, quote, "We will put the Department of Justice of the United States back in the business of justice. We will double the Civil Rights Division and direct law enforcement to counter extremism. We will hold social media platforms accountable for the hate infiltrating their platforms because they have a responsibility to fight against this threat to our democracy. And if you profit off hate, if you act as a megaphone for misinformation or cyber warfare, If you don't police your platforms, we are going to hold you accountable as a community. It's a very important election. It's a very important election. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Many of us recognize that as the First Amendment, and for those of you who are hearing it for the first time, please allow me to read it one more time. Congress, those are the people we elect. We are in control of who's in the Congress. We can go to the polls and elect Royce White and send him to the Senate. You can go in your local area, research your candidates, see who supports free speech and who is an authoritarian, no matter what they say about democracy or a woman's right to choose or climate change or equity. Understand the game, the scam, the play. First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. The rule book we live our lives by. Congress shall make the rule book we live our civic lives by. Please let me correct myself before some of you get me in the live chat. Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. There's a lot of dimensions to the First Amendment. For example, flag burning and the desecration of the American flag. Our own Supreme Court has ruled in Texas versus Johnson that flag desecration is allowable under the First Amendment. It's provocative and possibly offensive, but is a protected expression that counts as free speech under the First Amendment. The Supreme Court has reaffirmed this idea and has struck down a federal law prohibiting flag desecration in their decision, the United States versus Eichmann. Another dimension, number 2, political speech. Well, isn't that what we're doing here? Isn't that what John Kerry and Hillary Clinton are advocating, abridging? Didn't John Kerry said he wished that they had the votes, the mandate to change the law? How can they change this law? Well, we're going to talk about that because there's ways they can do it without changing the Constitution. True threats are not protected by the First Amendment because they can cause someone to fear for their life. But true threats are not protected. Remember, there's guardrails by the First Amendment because threats can cause someone to fear for their lives. We don't want people to be afraid. But what exactly qualifies as a true threat, as opposed to saying something mean or something that is interpreted as threatening when it really is not so clear-cut. It is illegal to threaten the president, the vice president, and certain high-ranking officials, for example. However, political speech, even words that are aggressive or perceived as hateful, are largely protected speech. That's how important free speech is in a free country. Because when you limit what people can think and you limit what people can say, you abridge their free will. And without free will, we can't be healthy. We can't have well-being if our free will is undermined. And boy, we do a great job of undermining our free will all by ourselves. We certainly don't need our government to participate in that. And in fact, one might say that our personal undermining of our free will is projected outward and is exacerbated and exploited by those who seek to rule us. If we truly were well, if we had well-being, if we truly had functioning free will, these people wouldn't have jobs. Kind of makes me laugh about how simple this really could be. You know, when President Trump says it would be simple to make this country great again, in theory, he's absolutely correct. Prayer in school, that's a dimension of free will. We're both free to pray in school and we're free not to pray in school. This stuff gets a little complex, doesn't it? Same thing with the Pledge of Allegiance. We're free to say the Pledge of Allegiance. We're free not to say the Pledge of Allegiance. We're free. We're free. We can protest in public school. You know, if you're under 18 years old and you happen to be watching this, which would be great, you have the right to protest in your school. Your teachers can't tell you not to protest as long as you're not disrupting the process of education within your institution. You can protest. Just don't disrupt your school activities. Fine. Don't be a sheep in that school. If they're teaching you things or saying things that you object to, you can protest. You just cannot do it in a way that disrupts the process of education. And that is guaranteed you by your system of laws as adjudicated by your Supreme Court. Your Supreme Court. It's yours. You're an American citizen, even if you're only 14 years old. Political signs. Hey, we're in a political season. There's signs everywhere. Signs everywhere there's signs. Political signs can go everywhere as long as they don't create safety hazards. And the rules that are there to protect public safety must apply to all political speech, not just a party or two, everybody. These are all guaranteed to us. This is what freedom of speech is all about. What you wear. Hey, if you want to go to school and your dress is disruptive, you can be disciplined for that. But there's a limit to the discipline. There's a limit to how people can tell you what to wear. And the bar door swings both ways. There has been states that have tried to shut down these drag queen shows by saying that what people are wearing is not okay. But the Supreme Court has said that's unconstitutionally vague and substantially overbroad. Actually, that was an appellate court. The judge said that while obscenity is not protected by the First Amendment, there is a difference between the legal definition of obscenity and what people merely think is obscene. This stuff is complex. But we can make it simple. Free speech is protected. Its limits are set in an ongoing adversarial system. The limits change over time. It's based on we the people, who we elect. It's about our will. It's not about being ruled. We have control of this process. We the people. Hey, we're in a conflict-oriented system. If we don't, if you're a Christian and you've decided not to participate in civic life because it's full of conflict and it violates your concept of Christianity, well, they had a coliseum for people like you. At the end, you'll be able to demonstrate your faith. Art is protected under the concept of free speech. What is art? What is the limits of art? I mean, these are things that we fight over. It's a conflict-oriented system. But we, the people, will dictate through this ballot box process what are the limits of acceptable or unacceptable art. But generally speaking, like we played that rap song at the beginning, please don't censor that. because there are words that people say, oh, we can't listen to these words. Oh, we're afraid of these words. Huh? Whatever happened to sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Down the memory hole that one went. You know, reading and writing of books, that's kind of like art, right? That's protected speech. We're not burning books here. People are going to say, but geez, they put these awful pornographic materials in my child's school library. Well, hey, you know what? Why don't you run for school board? Why don't you get control of your state and cut the budget to your local university unless they teach a curriculum that supports the things you believe in? All of this is malleable by we the people. And there's going to be pushback. This isn't going to stop. Do you think if President Trump wins that this battle is over? No, it's just beginning. These changes that we want to make, we need many, many electoral cycles to make it work. It's not like this is going to get changed in 4 years. It doesn't work like that. If Royce White gets elected to the Senate, as far as I'm concerned, we're going to have one authentic voice in the Senate. One out of 9. There's 99 other people. Some of them are okay. I've said I like Ron Johnson over in Wisconsin. I like Rand Paul. I like a few of these people. A few. Most of them suck. They just do. It's just my opinion. It's my opinion. Am I entitled to an opinion as an American citizen? It's just my opinion. I'm sharing my opinion. I'm not saying it's the truth. It's my opinion. Political donations. I can give money. There's limits on what I can give, but the Supreme Court decided that corporations could give money in certain prescribed ways. It's free speech. A corporation has free speech. A union has free speech. We didn't know that until they made this Citizens United decision. It's an ongoing conflict. Get used to it. Get used to embrace it. My friend Tom, who I say with love, we're so connected. We've broken up twice. We're still together. Has said that conflict is part of the system, and he's absolutely correct. He's absolutely correct. But let's do it with some style. Let's use our words, because we have free speech. Let's try to avoid the pitchforks and the torches that are the inevitable result of tyranny, because tyranny has its own cycle too. Tyranny always ends up in the same place. That's why in China, the leadership lives behind a brick wall and there's a tank with its turret pointed out towards the street, because they know tyranny has its own cycle too, just like freedom. They're related like yin and yang. So let's think about that yin-yang circle. What does it represent? A black side with a little white dot in it that turns into a white side with a little black dot in it. Oh, that's what it represents. The great movement. Now, it represents many other things, because everything works like that in a cycle. But in a political sense, tyranny turns into liberty, and liberty turns into tyranny. And it's up to us, we the people, because we have the first form of governance, republicanism, that if we work to keep it, we shall have it. First one. Woo. Wow. Thank you, God, for the United States of America. Let's end with a few great speech moments in the 20th century. Just a few. Women will like this. And if you didn't know about this, I'm going to remind you of it. It's called the Silent Sentinel Protests. Powerful speech can involve no words at all. It's the freedom to assemble, remember? excuse me, peaceable assembly. One of the most iconic protests was the women's suffrage movement. It was conducted by a group called the Silent Sentinels, organized by Alice Paul, a Quaker women's rights activist with a commitment to nonviolence. I went to a Quaker college, Haverford College, nonviolence. That's part of the Quaker way, nonviolence. She was committed to nonviolence and women's suffrage. The Silent Sentinels protested in silence in front of the White House during the Woodrow Wilson presidency from January 1917 to June of 1919. The protesters wore sashes, held banners, and carried flags with messaging in support of a woman's right to vote. It was a 2.5-year-long vigil, one of the longest continuous protests in American history. 2,000 women picketed, and they suffered from police brutality. Many were arrested and imprisoned, and many suffered further cruelties that included being force-fed, beaten, choked, and abused. Awful. But at the end of the day, their protest succeeded, and women have the right to vote. They've been emancipated. They're American citizens, and they're due the rights and the respect of every American citizen, and we're still working on that. We're still working it out because we're seeking a more perfect union. Abrams versus the United States. Ooh, this is a tough one. This is how free speech gets abridged, okay? It's called war. That's why this thing going on in that line of conflict is so interesting. Because when the United States declares war, there's a new game. In fact, in the Woodrow Wilson era, World War I, or what I would call the beginning of the 100 Years' War, our Congress, the people we elected, passed the Espionage Act of 1917. And people were prosecuted and imprisoned simply for opposing the draft. So like right now when I say, well, look out, there could be a draft because we haven't declared war. If we declare war and I come on this podcast and I start saying, hey, resist the draft, well, David Penn goes to jail. Isn't that nice? That's why war is such an interesting tool to be used by the authoritarians. The Supreme Court has upheld the Espionage Act as it will uphold the Patriot Act. In other words, again, a yin and a yang. Free speech over here. Congress has the right to abridge it under certain circumstances, usually related to your safety. We're doing it for you. It's so nice. We're doing it for you to protect you from foreign adversaries, like the Russians. Russia, Russia, Russia. Just an opinion. The Scopes trial. Could you please play number 6? This one's really interesting.
Request permission to withdraw from this case. Mr. Drummond, you can't quit now. Why not? You were ready to 5 minutes ago.
Colonel Drummond, what reasons can you possibly have?
Well, there are 200 of them. And if that's not enough, there's one more. I think my client has already been found guilty.
Is Mr. Drummond saying that this expression of an honest emotion will in any way influence the court's impartial administration of the law?
I say that you cannot administer a wicked law impartially. You can only destroy, you can only punish. And I warn you that a wicked law like cholera destroys everyone it touches, its upholders as well as its defiers.
Colonel Drummond.
Can't you understand that if you take a law like evolution and you make it a crime to teach it in the public schools, tomorrow you can make it a crime to teach it in the private schools, and tomorrow you may make it a crime to read about it, and soon you may ban books and newspapers, and then you may turn Catholic against Protestant, and Protestant against Protestant, and try to foist your own religion upon the mind of man. If you can do one, you can do the other, because fanaticism and ignorance is forever busy and needs feeding. And soon, Your Honor, with banners flying and with drums beating, we'll be marching backward Through the glorious ages of that 16th century, when bigots burned the man who dared bring enlightenment and intelligence to the human mind.
I hope counsel does not mean to imply that this court is bigoted.
Well, Your Honor has the right to hope.
I have the right to do more than that.
You have the power to do more than that.
And I exercise that power. Colonel Drummond, I order you to show cause tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock why you should not be held in contempt of this court. And in the meanwhile, I order that you be held in custody of the bailiff. Bail is fixed at $2,000.
I urge you to watch that over and over, because there's more in that scene than we have time to unpack. First of all, on a personal sidebar, Darren from Bewitched was playing the part of Scopes, John Scopes, who was a high school teacher who was encouraged to purposely violate the Butler Act in Tennessee, which prohibited the teaching of the theory of evolution. Because, of course, this was a much gentler time back there in 1925. We still had republicanism. And here comes the theory of evolution. And you saw that monologue by the very famous actor. I think his name's Spencer Tracy. I'm almost sure that it is. He's fantastic. And what he's saying is, man, hey, free speech, dude. Come on. You can't control what people are thinking. We have an adversarial system. And then, of course, he has the classic, we're marching backwards, just like Kamala Harris and the Democrats are saying, if we elect Donald Trump, we're marching backwards. No, we're not marching backwards. We're in an adversarial system. It's not a straight line. Doesn't work like that. You want us to believe that because you think I'm stupid. Okay, great. You go ahead and think I'm stupid. We're in an adversarial system. And then there's the great, I think his name's Harry Morgan, who was on MASH. These are shows from my childhood from the 60s and 70s. Man, what a trip down memory lane. But that scene shows how our Republican founders were so brave that they let a system go into place that let opposing views vie against the very philosophy they fought and died for. That is bravery. And we can't even get off the couch to go to a Vikings game and hold a sign. Unbelievable. And what's the most recent greatest exercise of free speech? It's things like the Montgomery bus boycotts, the civil rights movement. Because when people are really, really suffering, going back to my comment about why I can't get the street teams, I want 1,000 Republicans in the streets here in Minnesota. If we can get 20, hey, you got to start somewhere. Because we're not suffering yet. We've been bought off with this materialism, this screen you're looking at. You can go to the grocery store and buy anything you want to. The illusion of freedom is not freedom. The illusion of freedom is a trap. The election of Donald Trump is a trap. All this energy is going to dissipate. We're going to think we won. We're not winning anything. This is a forever and ongoing battle set up for us by our founders that allowed foreign ideologies, foreign ideas, competing ideas to come into our public square and vie for control of the people's minds, hearts, and souls. That's so badass that we live in that kind of an environment, because it calls upon me to stand up and fight for what I believe, to maintain what I believe in, lest it be swept away and into the ash bin of history, like putting leeches on people's bodies to make them healthier. A lot of things have gone away. The March on Washington, 1963. The freedom to assemble. Black people were so oppressed that in the millions they went into the streets. And that changed this country. That's how change is affected in a constitutional process. The freedom to assemble, the freedom to speak, the freedom to think, to write, to create. And that's precisely what they're trying to take away from us. We looked at the evidence. I'm not making it up. You heard what John Kerry said. You heard what Hillary Clinton said. That's exactly what the racists said in the 1960s. We can't let these people assemble. They sick dogs on them. They beat them to a pulp when they assembled. Why? They wanted to realize the promises of our Constitution. And we're allowing this to happen by our passivity, our laziness. No, I'm not going to do it. I want you to go get people to the Free People Radio. I want you to support this. I want us to gather in the millions, because the people that are leading this now, they're getting old. We need a new crop of leaders to pick up the mantle, they're going to run the gauntlet. They have to pick up the mantle of leadership. Young leaders like Royce White. We need to get them empowered and back their play, because they're not anything without us. It's about us. Let's go vote. Let's look and let's go out with number 7. Let it not be forgotten.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
That's good, Tanner. Thank you so much. So, we have a leader, Donald Trump. People are gathering in tremendous numbers. Let us remember what they're gathering for, which is the freedom that comes with self-governance. Let us remember that if you're in a leftist state, like I'm here in Minnesota, people are not gathering. We need to gather together ourselves as the American people. Want to move the needle? Let's get out in the streets together. Let's protect freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of movement, freedom to assemble. Freedom to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And as we close in on this election, get off the couch, please. Now, on a happier note, on the last podcast, I came across in my meanderings a song by the Steve Miller Band that I thought was really cool. Hadn't heard it for a long time. Looked it up online. We're going to go out with it. It's called Take the Money and Run. And it's set to scenes from a movie called Bonnie and Clyde, which was a great movie with Faye Dunaway, who's just smashing. And Warren Beatty as the criminal Bonnie and Clyde, these were actual historical figures. And this is what happens when your government, creates conditions where everybody is without anything. You create criminality. And that brings forth the police state. This kind of criminality brought forth the FBI. Didn't exist before this time period. So we're going to go out with Take the Money and Run. I think it's a cool song. It's a little bit about materialism, but it's a cool song, and I like it. I think it's from the 70s, and it's a nice memory for me. And on that note, I want to wish you well, wish you a good weekend, very serious times, and I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday night, God willing. Thank you very much.
Joe and Bobby Sue, two young lovers with nothing better to do than sit around the house, get high and watch a tube. And here's what happened when they decided to cut loose. They headed down to old El Paso. I swear they ran into a great big hassle. Billy Joe shot a man while robbing his castle. Bobby Sue took the money and run. Go on, take 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 the money and run. Billy Mack is a detective down in Texas. He knows just exactly what the facts is. He ain't gonna let those two escape justice. He makes his living off of the people's taxes. Bobby Sue, whoa, she slipped away. Billy Joe caught up to her the very next day. They got the money, hey, they got away. They headed down south and they're still running today. Saying, go on, take the money and run. Go on, take the money and run. Go on, take the money and run. Oh, no. Go on, take the money and run.
And all I can say is, they did right with me, and I'm bringing me a mess of flowers to their